Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In this video we are going to see how we can represent matrices with the help of list, but actually nested list. So let us first understand what is a matrix, and then we are going to switch ourselves to Python, and then we will be coding in list so that we can implement each and every operation that is available in mathematical matrices. So first of all, talking about what is a matrix. So in mathematics, a matrix is a rectangular array or a table of numbers, symbols, or any expression arranged in form of rows and columns, right? So we are all mathematical students, so we have studied matrices, in much detail as compared in programming. So on your screen there is a figure which is representing matrices, which is an M cross N matrix. It have M number of rows and N columns. You can see the different colors, and the A11, A12, all these are the total elements that are there in the matrices. So we all know that there are several kinds of operations that we can perform on matrices, such as matrix addition, transpose, multiplication, and so on. So first of all, we will be switching ourselves to Python screen, and we will be looking at that how we can use nested lists as matrices. So here I am on the Python screen, and let me just make a matrix. I'm just using this name as a variable, and here I will be creating a nested list, right? So that will be having one element as a list, which will be having three elements, comma, another list which will be having three elements again, and another list with three elements. So in total this is a list which have three elements, and all the elements are in turn list. So this is a nested list, right? So I will be mentioning over here that it is a nested list. So now what we are going to do is just printing the elements in a particular fashion, so that we can just visualize that yes, we can use them as a matrix also. So for accessing, I will be using a for loop for I in range. See, this time I know that there are three elements in the matrices, and in turn those in turn three elements in the list, and in turn all the elements are also three in numbers, right? So internal number is also 3. So here I know, that is why I'm taking the range as 3 for rows, you can say, and for j in range again 3, because this time I know, because I have taken the elements on my own. I can also change the loop variable to rows and column to make it more understandable, right? So let it be 3 rows and 3 columns. What I will be doing over here is I will be just printing these elements for the first, right? So I will be taking matrix because that is the name of the list. I will be first taking row because I want the first element, and second I will be taking the second loop variable, that is column. Now you know that we can actually access the elements in a nested list by using these subscripts after the name of the list, right? So this is the same representation that we do in the two-dimensional array when we do in C programming when we represent matrices. So it is similar to that only. I will be taking the named parameter and as a space, because I do not want to change the rows. I want 1 2 3 in a single row. And for changing the column, here I will be taking an empty print statement, because that will be acting as /n, right? So as I will be running this particular code, you can see the output as we represent the matrices. So if we run it, you can see on your screen the numbers are printed as it is. So you can see that in the first row there are three elements, that is 1 2 3, 1 2 3, and here it is 1 2 3. In the second row it is considering another three elements, that is 4 5 and 6, and in third one 7 8 and 9. So we can see that here we have elements in a 3 cross 3 matrix. So yes, we can use nested list to represent matrices as well. Now this was a very simple example where we have just created a matrix, a nested list on ourselves, but there will be certain situation when we want the users to enter the matrices. So let us see how we can ask the user to input the matrices at runtime. So let me just comment this particular code over here because I do not require it now. So this is for commenting. We can use 3 quotation marks for multi-line comments. Now the program that we are going to do over here will be ask a user to input a matrix, right? So ask the user to input a matrix. So this will be a Python program in which a user will going to enter a matrix, right? So first of all, in the above example, I know that there were 3 rows and 3 columns, but what if we don't know, right? So what we are going to do, we will be taking row as a variable and I will be asking the user to input it. So input, enter the number of rows. Simple. So here the user will be entering the number of rows. Same, I will be asking the user to enter the number of columns, right? So just change rows to columns and here also change rows to columns, right? So let it be call. So for our sakes, I will be using 3 rows and I will be using 3 as column. We can of course change the values, right? So that is the first thing, that is difference over here, because this time I do not know that I want to enter this value. So I am asking the user, all right, tell us the number of rows and column. After that, because I will be making a matrix and that matrix will be a list. So first of all, I will be making matrix as an empty list, because again, we do not know about these number, but we know that we want to create a matrix. So let us take matrix and an empty row, right? Sorry, an empty list. Now, what we want users to enter the elements, right, at runtime. So what we are going to do, we will be just printing a statement and asking the users, please enter the elements, right? So this will be running on the prompt when it will be asking the user, please enter certain elements. Now, one more thing that is to be remembered, that the first element which I have, right, the first element for my matrix will be a list in itself, right, because I want to enter this particular thing, at runtime by the keyboard input. So I am asking the user to enter an input, but the input will be a list in itself, right, because I want to enter the complete row for the first time, right? So here I will be taking a for loop with a loop variable, let's say I, in range rows. Now understand why I have taken this for loop. See, elements will be 1, 2, 3 elements I want to enter, right? So the first element will be this list one time, this list second time, and this list for the third time. That means I want 3 times the user to enter the elements, right? And that will be representing the rows that we have seen in this example, right? This is one row, this is second row, and this is the third row, right? So I have taken the for loop for number of rows because this will be one list, this will be second list, and this will be third list, which is nothing but the elements of my list, right? So I have taken a for loop with rows, right? But the elements itself are a list, right? So these elements itself are list, but this particular empty list will correspond to this outer square brackets. We need lists for this particular elements as well, right? So here I will be taking each and every time inside the for loop another list and taking that name as the temporary list like this. So every single time whenever there will be the iteration of the for loop, this temp will be created as an empty list, right? Now, how many elements I want to enter inside this particular list, right? So this temp corresponds to this list. So how many elements are there in this particular list? That is 3. And where that 3 is coming from? From the columns, right? So you can see in this example also how many columns this particular matrix have. The number of elements 3, which is nothing but the inside elements, that is the number of columns. So this time I will be creating another for loop for j in range, and this time the value will be up till calls, right? So that will be in turn how many elements inside those nested list will be the number of columns. So here it will be 3, right? Now the next thing will be the user will be entering the elements, and those elements need to be appended in which particular list first? In temp. So these elements will be appended in this side. So when I will be entering 1, that will go to this temporary list, then 2 into this temporary list, 3 then into this particular temporary list only. And after that we will be appending this temp to matrices, right? So after doing that, what we are going to do, we will be coming out of this for loop of columns, and we going to append this particular temp to our matrices, right? So what we are going to do is, here we will not be writing temp actually, here we will be actually inputting int input, because we want to take this value from users, and here I will be doing append, and here the value will be temp, right? And after that you can copy paste this particular code over here, copy it and paste it here, and just change the values of the variables. Let it be r, let it be c, let it be row, let it be call, and change this also to c and r, right? So once again, if we can see that each and every time here we will be entering the value as 1, then 2, then 3, and this will be converted into a list, right? And then afterward what we are going to do, we will be appending this list into another list like this at each iteration. So in the first iteration the value will go like this, then in the second iteration the value will be something like this, and then it will get appended to your matrices, and so on in the third iteration the third value, right? So that is how we have actually created the program to enter the matrices at runtime. So let us run the code. And here it says enter the number of rows. This time the rows will be 3 and the columns will also be 3. Enter the elements. So here I will be entering the element as 1, 2 and 3, then 4, 5 and 6, 7, 8 and 9, and you can see that I have got that particular the values to be printed. So right, so here that is one thing with which we have actually created a matrix with the help of nested list, and here is the values as we got in the previous output as well. So that is how we can actually work with our nested lists as matrices. I hope that this code was clear to you all, and for all such videos Stay tuned to my channel. Thank you.